Is that, did mom have the resources and the ability to save you from your previous decision making and rescue you? And you're asking her, like, what should I do? And did she have the wherewithal? Did she have the life? Did she live the experience? Did her mother have it
You
that
know,
could rescue you?
I think some people just are looking for a scapegoat and not wanting to take responsibility.
I think it's low hanging fruit.
It's easier to just point
Yeah.
at somebody who's closest to me. Mom, I remember that one time you told me this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. I'm like, yeah.
Welcome to Call for the Truth. I am Lot of the Sun, and this is Tamaris of the Sun. And we welcome you to our discussion today. We're going to talk about our mothers today. But before we begin, Tamaris, will you bring us into the Call for Truth?
Most certainly, and we encourage you all to join us in the call for the truth. Should we call forth the frequency of truth? Should we call to see the truth in all that we see? Should we call to hear the truth in all that we hear? Shall we call to speak the truth in all that we say? Shall we call forth the courage to speak the truth? Shall we call forth nothing less than the truth to come forward into our experience? Now that we are hearing the truth, we encourage you all to continue joining us in the pursuit of the call for the truth. Hit the like, subscribe, the bell notification. Let the algorithm know that people need to hear this. So we are here, Call for the Truth.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And today's topic, we're speaking about mothers specifically. One of the things that inspired this was seeing some continuity within client case studies with essentially clients who have a profound hatred for their mothers based upon some unresolved trauma in their childhood. And it's very intense and problematic. And although there's a relationship of I want from them, I can't stand them. It's very odd, but it does bring to mind what has happened to us as humans in terms of the parent-child relationship, specifically with the mother figure and how that branches off into the archetype of mother, the planet Earth, and the divine mother in general. So where would you like to take us with this?
I'd like to start at the beginning.
Well, of course.
And I'd like to start with the concept of when we are children, in many cases, in most cases, the mother is everything. She becomes the source of laughter and happiness and food and warmth and all of the things, all of the physical aspects, and then all of, in most cases, the feeling of love and protection. And this is an archetypal energy that we experience as our physical mothers, but it is actually universal. It's this universal womb of creation from which we have been separated from, and there is at some level psychosis and fragmentation and from the separation, and we blame that energy for all things that happen afterwards.
Yeah.
So whether we feel abandoned, and then everything in our life shows us how abandoned we are, but where does that actually begin? Does it begin in the separation from the flowing pool or source energy from which we emerge to come into this experience? And then because we don't remember our task, then we fragment or become fragmented into feeling that we're separate when in fact we are the plan. And the plan was to individualize. So I think it starts with the greater idea of the universe, and then it reduces to the planet, and then to our physical mothers, from which everything is the same thing. It's the acorn in the acorn in the acorn,
Yeah.
you know.
It's I'm gonna use the term Russian doll.
Yeah, it's the
You know,
nesting
yeah,
dolls.
and you can see it throughout all the levels.
And
It's
so
fascinating.
I think if we think of it that way, we may be able to find the thread of where it begins with the resentment of separation or the feeling of abandonment. I experienced it in my early life as well, where every experience I had, I saw it through the lens of abandonment until I called for correction and then began to see that it wasn't that at all, that was a distortion that had created an illusion that had hardened into a delusion that kept me feeling not complete until I could cognitively see that what I viewed as separation was just a different level of being part of something. It was no longer this idea of someone left, or I lost someone, or my parents got divorced, or my mother went somewhere. It was all of that shifted, and I realized that everybody had something to do, and that as much as I would have liked to have been the center of the universe, I was not. And it wasn't done to me, it was done with me, and that I was doing the same with my relationships, my children, and my family. And that's because that's the process of becoming realized, of becoming strong enough to individualize your own light and power. That there is this level of you can't stay in the womb forever.
At some point, you got to be birthed
You've
and
got to be birthed.
crawl up out of this,
And when you're birthed, then it feels different than being in the womb.
It does. It's not as cozy.
Yes, it feels different. And even though you ease into it through growth, at some point, you go to the Midwest, you get cold. You know what I mean? It's like at some point you feel the breeze.
Yeah.
So many of our clients, so many people who I run into now are angry that they were not saved from the life experiences that would make them greater. That it was their mother's fault. My mother told me, when I asked her, should I get a divorce? She told me, no, stay and try to make it work. So now, 30 years later, I'm pissed off at her because I stayed at the scene of the crime way too long.
And is that mom's fault? But to the individual, it's perceived as I'm doing the thing that my mom told me to do. I think at some point we have to think for ourselves. And I can see where maybe there was a moment that mom saw, like, try to think clearly now. Don't just jump to conclusions. Try to work this out. But then there's also an aspect of, okay, have I already exhausted all my options? And versus overstaying, and now you got spoiled milk and still drinking from it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at this. There's that, did mom have the resources and the ability to save you from your previous decision making and rescue you? And you're asking her, like, what should I do? And did she have the wherewithal? Did she have the life? Did she live the experience? Did her mother have it that could rescue you?
I think some people just are looking for a scapegoat and not wanting to take responsibility.
I think it's low-hanging fruit.
It's easier to just point at somebody who's closest to me. Mom, I remember that one time you told me this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. Like, yeah, I think that's what people do.
Or you did something to me that I think was aggressive and abusive, even though it's what everybody in our world and that we're all conditioned to do is put me on a train or a plane and sent me somewhere when I was 12.
But mom's an easy type of scapegoat, Moms are, it is. I think,
until you become one.
Well, yeah, and then it's like, damn, now I see what she was talking about. But let me take it back, actually, because you not alluded, but you mentioned it literally, it wasn't until you began to see essentially through the lens of others. And that's something that helped me as well with my mother. I ended up meditating, and my guidance prompted me to see through her lens. I was really practicing in Lakesh at that time.
I mean, you and I were
And
talking about it
yeah,
too, and there were things that were said that should have prompted you along as well.
yeah,
To like, that's not a good thing.
yeah. You've always said this idea of the reverence and respect for the mother, and the necessity to be on the right side of it, and how there's karma associated with it, or not so good karma, for just the imbalance between, or the disrespect shown to the mother more so. But my point that I'm making is that in taking a moment to see what I was upset about through the lens of my mother, it all made sense. I was like, she couldn't have done anything else. I see why she made the choices she made in terms of my upbringing. And it's like everything dropped.
Yes, because we were never meant to take full advice from the ones who came before us, because we were to evolve. We were to grow into a new experience. We weren't supposed to listen to everything they said and then relive whatever their experience was, because the growth that we were supposed to have had not happened in our ancestors' lives.
Yeah.
Not that there wasn't things to be gained, but that we were to find our way with the genetics and the DNA of the things they had learned active within us. And then we were to make the leap into the next spectrum, where fear and lack and scarcity was not the name of the game. So when we think about the pain, suffering, lies, deceit, secrets that our mothers, grandmothers, and great-grandmothers and all that women have gone through in the process of being women on the planet, we could be more generous. And of course, it relates to the planet itself as well. So when we think about how do we truly think of nature, all of us like to think of ourselves, well, I love nature. I like to go to the park. I like to, talk to the trees. But how do we truly feel about that which has provided for who we physically are? Everything about us comes from the planet.
Every financial crisis has one winner. It's not crypto, it's not stocks, it's not real estate, it's gold. In every financial crisis, there's one asset that always comes out on top. Not because it skyrockets overnight, but because it never dies. Stocks crash, currencies collapse, property markets freeze, but gold, it keeps buying the same value as it did 100 years ago. Look at history. 1929, 1971, 2008. The people holding gold weren't panicking. They were shopping. They had liquidity when everyone else was broke. The winner in a crisis isn't the one with the most cash. It's the one holding what cash runs to when it's scared. When the next crisis hits, you'll either watch your savings melt or you'll be the one buying gold at a discount.
I'd like to answer that.
Yes, good.
I think that humans, from my observation, is we take things for granted, meaning we do not express the appropriate level of gratitude and appreciation, and in many cases, the appropriate levels of consideration for what has been so freely given, and then also what is expected in return that we don't, in most cases, give back to sustain the balance within that relationship of mother-child or earth and humanity. So I'm going to say no. we don't. We're not in harmony.
Yes.
We don't love the earth as much as we think we do.
No, it's kind of illusionary.
Right.
Because we're allowing and permitting whatever, we're allowing the earth to be tokenized so that people can have individual wealth, because now they can say, I own that million trees. But do they own that million trees? Do they own the water? They're trying to own all the water. The president of Nestle is saying people don't have a right to water just because they're earthlings on earth with water. Next, it'll be the air. It is already the trees. So this is what's happening to our mother. And Our great love of Mother Earth has not stopped us from it has not allowed us to have the power from that love to stop that from happening. In the same way that when we think about, I have 2 or 3 cases recently where children are trying to put their parents out of expensive real estate so that they can sell or make money gain from the real estate because the parent's not dying fast enough. That is that's the same scenario. The same scenario, like tapping your foot. Aren't you dead yet? Aren't you dead yet? Aren't you dead yet? So I can take the resources and do what I want to. If you're slowing me up, you need to go to a home. And what does that say about us? What does that say about the sons and daughters who are participatory or even silent? Even if you're not, it's kind of like Halloween. Doesn't matter if you participate, you're in agreement with what goes on in your world, or you're not. So if you know about it and you don't stop it, whether you're the aggressor or the benefactor of it. So this whole idea of not wanting to protect those who at whatever level have protected you. Say you feel like your parents didn't protect you enough and that you had experiences that you wouldn't have had your parents been more astute. All of that could be true, and some of it could have been for their gain, but in most cases, there is a mechanism within humans that allows them to protect the young. We see it even with cats and dogs protecting the young of other animals. It's a mechanism that's within living, life-oriented beings that exists within humans for the most part, although, of course, humanity has been traumatized to the point where many heinous acts have happened that have distorted that in some people, but not in all. And for those of us who have the willingness to call for correction, there is creation has made a consciousness called correction that will come to our aid. That when we go to sleep at night, we can lay in bed and we can say, I call to be corrected. I call for all of the lineages. I call for all of my biology. I call for all of my ancestors for everything that has happened to us. I call to correct what may be corrected. Just that weaponizes us to be in the proper attitude towards the earth itself, towards the greater divine experience of separation from oneness in the first cause, to remember that we are not separated. In reality, it's a matter of how we think. If we think we're separated, we are most certainly separated. If we understand that we are part of the universe, part of the galaxy, part of the solar system, part of the earth, we are. But in our separation, we become separate, and in our separation, we begin to suffer. There's suffering in the separation.
Well, certainly.
So when we can join back together, when we can remember we were once the baby in the arms of someone who loved us, who kept us clean and warm, who fed us. And if we can't think of a kind thought, we can remember that. Like, that was when you didn't pay the rent, when you didn't have anything to give but your smile, where you were only concerned about your own needs, and someone gave you everything you needed. So I say that as Mother Earth, as the universe, and as the whole concept of directing anger to those who have not satisfied the desires that you are capable of manifesting the outcome to.
It's interesting. It's definitely tuning back into the inner child, reconciling, looking at who you are and maybe even with the parents too, because as you mentioned, like, where did that begin? Uh, Mom's just as jacked up too, you know. Mom's been through it. And this
Maybe
is
more.
what, yeah, this is
Maybe
what
more.
has helped me see that what was it that my mom went through that resulted in the experience that breeded or gestated resentment and feeling like I was abandoned and things of that nature. And so, and then before that, to
Yes.
produce her, and before then, so it's like, who do we point the finger at, right?
There isn't anyone to point the finger at.
Exactly.
As I go through time, the more I understand and the more I can see into what the truth was or is, the more I am heartbroken for any thought I had about my mother when I see her life and what she went through. Same for Mother Earth. I feel the same way for Mother Earth. I feel the same way for all of the children of the earth. But I also see that Source has given us a way to manifest anything we want if we could bring our congruency and coherency together enough to articulate internally what we want.
Yeah.
But what we see in front of us is what we have allowed and permitted. That's not our mother's fault. And so that part I'm clear on. And I would encourage others to think on this.
It's deep.
Yes. So if
Give us something to think about.
would you pull a card for
I
today's
most
discussion?
certainly will, in honor of the mothers.
Yes.
It's not even Mother's Day, so you don't need a holiday to speak of or engage with.
May every day be the holiday.
Hey, I'm gonna
Yeah.
put my feet on the mother.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom.
Yes. We'll get a little grounding, a
Yes.
little clarity. If
So-
if ever you want to calm yourself, just remember the warmth of being held and cared for as a baby. That's very comforting. It brings your brain waves into a different space. And you were saying?
Just asking the cards to share with us the truth that we need to see regarding healing our relationship with the mother. And the card for the truth pull today is the theme fear, root chakra. The maxim is the biggest trick played on humanity is fear. So one, I think about the earth, the
Yes.
connection, and a lot of what we spoke of is very foundational, and it's happening in terms of the tribal environment and what happens with us. And the although this is saying fear, it's bringing me to some of the markers we spoke of, like abandonment. Abandonment is fueled by fear.
Yeah.
The fear that nobody's around or
Right.
to support you, which, literally the root, the
Right.
support, the base. So, and clearly it's a trick because, you can take your behind outside and touch that earth. You're always supported. You can call on the divine feminine, or you can course correct, as you mentioned. And I love this, where we've been given this divine right to decide what we want. We can shift it
Yes.
within ourselves. We can choose to look at it differently. We can choose to understand and expand ourselves, which it collapses the fear.
Absolutely. That's so brilliant. The final thought I'd like to leave you with before we leave is that it was our own misunderstandings that allowed us to fragment. It can be our own clarity that brings us back to wholeness. We thank you for joining us, and we greet you with Invocation Veritas with honor, respect, gratitude, integrity, discipline, and action.